Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something really fascinating.
Yeah.
We're looking at creativity, where inspiration comes from and how some really old ideas, ancient wisdom even, connect up with, well, even modern stuff like AI.
It's a great topic
Mhm.
and full of surprises.
Totally. And the main figure we're sort of orbiting around today is the legendary music producer, Rick Rubin.
Ah, yes, an icon for sure.
Yeah.
Known for doing things differently.
Exactly. His approach to art is pretty unique. We're digging into excerpts from Rick Rubin, Vibe, Creativity, and the Tao of Art.
Which is this amazing dialogue he had with Ryan Holiday. Really insightful stuff.
It really is.
And our mission here for this deep dive is pretty clear, I think. We want to pull out the big ideas about the creative process.
Right. How can we actually foster it?
Exactly. And look at these maybe unexpected links between, philosophy, art, technology. It's about the why of creativity, not just the what.
Okay, let's get into it then. There's this term that comes up a lot around Rubin, even if he didn't actually invent it himself. Vibe coding.
Right.
Vibe coding.
What exactly is that, and why is it so Rubin?
It's a really useful analogy, actually, especially now with AI.
How so?
Well, think about traditional coding. It's painstaking, right? Exact lines, precise instructions, very labor-intensive.
Okay.
But vibe coding, it's more like describing what you want. You use natural language, maybe more abstract ideas.
Like prompting an AI. Make me a picture that feels
Yeah, that
like.
gives the feeling, the intention, the vibe. You don't specify every pixel. You let the system interpret and build from that. It's intuitive prompts over hard syntax.
Ah, okay. I see the connection.
And that's basically Rubin's method in the studio, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's not usually playing the instruments himself.
Right. He's known for
He's communicating feelings, moods, abstract goals to the musicians. He sets the vibe.
And then they run with it.
Pretty much. He provides the prompt, they interpret it, bring it to life.
So he sets the vibe, but the musicians do the interpreting. That sounds, it sounds almost too hands-off, doesn't it?
Like, where does his vibe even come from? Does he talk about that? And surely some artists must struggle to, translate something so abstract. It seems like it needs a massive amount of trust.
That's a really good point. And yeah, it does require trust, but it's not really hands-off. It's more like active guidance.
Okay.
His vibe comes from really deep listening, from observing, sensing what the music itself kind of wants to become. He fosters an environment where musicians feel safe to explore.
Knowing he'll steer them back if needed.
Exactly. And the surprises that come out of this, that's often where the magic is.
Right. The unexpected results.
Yeah. Might not be what you first thought, but it leads somewhere new, somewhere fascinating. A bit like jazz improv, maybe.
Or just Rubin in the studio. It definitely challenges that old idea of the artist having total, rigid control.
It really does. It puts the focus on intent and being open to whatever happens rather than sticking to some fixed plan.
Okay, so that openness leads us somewhere else interesting. We've all been there, right?
Sure.
Staring at the screen, the page. Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The blank page terror.
So the big question is always, do you force it, push through, or do you step back, rest, hope it comes back later?
Mm-hmm.
And Rubin has a really interesting take here.
He does. He and Ryan Holiday get right into that rhythm, that sort of creative ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Rubin really believes in just showing up,
Yeah.
but crucially, with no expectations tied to it.
No expectations. That's hard.
It is. But he emphasizes how unpredictable creativity is. Some days, boom, something great happens unexpectedly. Other days,
Yeah.
nothing. Flat.
And you just accept that.
You kind of have to. He uses this great analogy. Compares it to being a passenger on a boat.
Okay.
You can steer, make adjustments, but you don't control the ocean. You just respond to the conditions.
That makes me think of what Ryan Holiday brought up, Lou Gehrig's advice to a young player.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
You can't be good every day. It's not about being perfect all the time.
Exactly. It's the consistency, the showing up. That's what counts in the long run.
So showing up consistently leads to this other really important point they discuss, stability. How stability can actually fuel creative chaos.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Rubin reflects that having a stable, grounded personal life, it actually empowers you.
Empowers you how?
It lets you take bigger risks in your art. It gives you that solid foundation, that safe harbor to return to when you go out into the wild unknown of creating something new.
That really pushes against the stereotype, doesn't it?
Lately.
The image of the tortured artist, life in shambles, but the art is amazing.
Right, the romantic myth.
How does Rubin, who makes such boundary-pushing stuff, actually champion this sort of monkish discipline for creativity. It feels
It
paradoxical.
is a paradox, but a powerful one.
Yeah.
He talks about his early days working himself into the ground
Yeah.
and learning the hard way that just logging more hours in the studio doesn't automatically mean better art. It just doesn't work like that.
Okay. Experience taught him that.
And from that, he came up with this amazing quote: "Keep your workstation orderly so your work can be disorderly."
Orderly workstation. Disorderly work. I have to admit, that's a tough one for me. My desk. Well.
Uh-huh. I think many creatives can relate to that.
So when he says orderly workstation, is he just talking about like physical tidiness?
Mm.
Or is it bigger than that? Like structuring your time, your headspace? Because, one of those might be easier for me than the other.
Good question. I suspect it's probably both.
Yeah.
I mean, a tidy physical space definitely cuts down on distractions, right?
Mhm.
But maybe more importantly, it's about having routines, clarity in your daily life.
So you're not wasting mental energy on the small stuff.
Exactly. It frees up that energy, that bandwidth to really dive deep into the messy, unpredictable creative work itself. Your mind is liberated.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The freed up headspace. So this paradox, order enabling creative freedom. What really stands out to you about that?
For me, it's that liberation aspect, and it connects so well to these older philosophies that Rubin seems to embody.
Like the Tao.
Exactly. His whole process feels like walking the Tao the way, or the logos, that underlying principle of order. It's about starting on a path, but being completely open to where it actually leads you. Not forcing it, not having a rigid destination in mind.
And the source material gives examples, right? Like Rubin in the studio.
Yeah, suddenly deciding to pivot, change the tempo, the whole structure, bring in different instruments.
All based on intuition, in the moment.
Purely intuition, responding to what the music seems to need right then and there.
Which brings us back to vibe coding again, doesn't it?
It does. Prompt, feedback, iterate, respond.
It's very fluid.
Very. And Ryan Holiday links this to Stoic ideas, Taoist principles. Being flexible, adaptable, responsive. Not rigid. It's like dancing with reality instead of trying to wrestle it into submission.
And Rubin talks about how ideas often pop up from these weird, strange synchronicities.
Yeah, like a random conversation you overhear or a line in a book.
Something totally unexpected that suddenly clicks and solves a problem you've been stuck on.
Exactly. So it's not just about passively waiting around for the muse to show up, is it?
Seem not. Is there a way to encourage those moments, or is it just down to luck?
Well, luck helps. But Rubin's point is that you need to be open and aware. That's essential.
Paying attention.
Yes. If you're too narrowly focused, too rigid in your thinking, you'll just miss those little gifts, those whispers from the universe, as he sometimes calls them.
So you have to cultivate that receptive mindset.
Precisely. A kind of gentle vigilance, being ready to notice things.
Speaking of noticing things and those timeless insights, that leads to another really cool part of their discussion, constraints.
Ah, yes. Limitations as creative fuel.
But just before that, Rubin tells this amazing story about finding the Tao Te, just stumbling upon it in a bookstore.
Right, and feeling this immediate, deep connection.
And realizing later that the book actually seemed to change every time he reread it.
Which is just, wow. The magic of a book that literally grows with you.
Yeah.
Because you've grown. It's open, it's poetic, it's timeless. And that experience, he says, became a kind of model for his own book, The Creative Act.
He wanted it to be like that.
Exactly. Something you could return to again and again and find new meaning, new relevance for where you are in your life, in your creative journey at that specific moment.
That's powerful. And Ryan Holiday connects this to other cool ideas, right? Like Heraclitus.
Yeah, the you can't step in the same river twice idea. Because both you and the river are constantly changing. So, of course, a text reveals new things.
And Confucius, too. How wisdom isn't one size fits all.
Right. It needs to be tailored, adapted, which is what these timeless texts allow. Rubin really admires how books written thousands of years ago can still feel so relevant.
Because they're open enough for us to see ourselves in them.
Exactly. Their openness is key. And that brings us to constraints. It's kind of the flip side of that openness in a way.
How so?
Well, they discuss how many of the formats we just take for granted now.
Like physical books or 3-minute pop songs.
Or even 30-minute TV shows. They didn't just appear out of nowhere. They often came from commercial needs or technological limitations.
Right. Like how much music fit on...
Exactly. But these constraints, born out of necessity, somehow endured.
Right.
They became intuitive as shapes for creativity, almost like accidental genius.
Accidental genius of form. I like that. Because even now, with seemingly infinite freedom digitally,
We still often gravitate towards those older structures, don't we?
we do. And Rubin admits he loves audiobooks now for walking and listening.
Right. But he still has this reverence for how those limitations actually shaped art, became part of its identity.
So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to have those boundaries?
Sometimes boundaries can actually spark creativity, give you something to push against or work within.
Okay, so as we kind of pull all these threads together from this deep dive with Rubin and Holiday, what are the main takeaways? Let's try and distill them.
Sounds good.
First, I'd say it's this idea of vibe over code.
Right.
Using intuition, feeling, natural language, not rigid instructions.
Definitely. Intent over syntax. Second, consistency matters. Just
Yeah.
showing up even when you don't feel it. That Lou Gehrig idea.
Yeah. Can't be good every day, but you can show up every day.
Yeah.
Third, that paradox. Stability breeds creativity.
Orderly life enables disorderly work. It's a big one. Being open to detours, trusting the path, the process, like the Tao. Don't force it. Be flexible.
Respond to what's happening. Fifth, returning to wisdom. Those timeless texts and ideas that grow with us.
The Tao Te Ching example. Books that change because we change.
And finally, just the power of timelessness itself. How great art, great ideas, they just resonate across time. They speak to different generations.
Absolutely. This whole conversation, this deep dive, it really gives us a profound way to think about, well, both human creativity and even AI creativity.
Yeah.
It's a philosophical framework almost.
Yeah.
It encourages us, artists, writers, thinkers, everyone, to maybe lean more into intuition, to follow that vibe, that inner rhythm.
And trust where it takes you.
Exactly. Even if you're not entirely sure where you're going, trust the process.
So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for you, listening right now? How could you maybe apply some of these ideas from Rick Rubin in your own life, your own work, whatever that might be?
Yeah, it's a great question to ponder.
Maybe it's about trying to find your own vibe to code with. Or maybe it's about deliberately bringing a bit more order to your workspace, your schedule, to see if that actually unlocks more creative disorder in your thinking.
Or perhaps it's just about committing to showing up tomorrow, whatever happens, passenger on the boat, ready for the waves.